Alrighty, welcome everyone, and we're excited you're here to join us as we announce RISE, the Recovery Information Sharing Exchange, designed to help navigate the economic recovery from the global COVID-19 pandemic. My name is Miranda Yiris, and our speaker today is Pete O'Dell, a co-founder of Swan Island Networks, who has been the CEO of the company since 2015 and has worked in the technology, security, and software space throughout his career. Before joining Swan Island, Pete served as the Chief Operating Officer for several high-growth startups and was president of Autodesk Retail Products. He has also authored several books, including Silver Bullets, a book on interoperable data, and Cyber 24/7, Risks, Leadership, Sharing. His new book, Global Shared Resilience, is slated for publication later this year. So please type your questions during the presentation into the chat window on the right side of the screen, and we'll do our best to answer them in the Q&A period at the end of the session. And now I turn it over to Pete.
Great, thank you, Miranda, and welcome everybody. We are going to announce RISE today. I'm going to give you a quick overview, and this is going to be recorded and put on YouTube. So, and if you want copies of the slides, my email address is down at the bottom. So feel free to contact me if the slides are of interest to you. We're going to talk through just a little bit of Swan Island Networks background, talk about the recovery, and then we'll dive right into information sharing essentials and RISE, and what we have in store for you, and then you can ask questions and answers. So I wanted to give you just a 60-second summary of RISE in case anybody has to go quickly. You know, RISE is going to be a password control community of vested participants where you're going to be able to share information about the recovery, all of which is moderated by Swan Island Networks analysts and automated feeds that we do, but we're also going to take submissions from the community, hopefully creating a network effect of people submitting the best of things that they find. And this is going to be a free service, so 2 logins per company. You know, the sources of information will be wide and global. You know, best practices, you know, news, socials, government alerts. We'll have both static information, so articles and YouTubes about the strategic versions of the COVID recovery, but also breaking news. So, you know, virus recurrence and those types of things. So we'll have a wide variety of that. The participants, again, will be, we think, fairly wide. We think they'll be mostly corporate folks that are looking to figure out how to do a better job planning the recovery. It's going to be complex, as I'll talk about. So corporate nerve centers and clusters of people, both on a regional basis, where everybody in a particular city is working together to figure out what has to happen, but also across an industry. So, for example, if you're a manufacturing firm, what does that mean to bring people back? You have to reconfigure your factory floor, and especially people that are worried about multi-location. So, if you're a company that has, you know, 10 locations across the country or 5,000 locations around the world, the complexity of the recovery goes up. And I think the benefits that everybody will see is, you know, saving time, increasing breadth of knowledge, you know, helping yourself by helping others, and we'll talk about the sharing multiples there. And just as a note, there are private versions of RISE available if you wanted to have one for your company or for your customers. And this is built on a multi-use platform that I'll touch on later in the agenda. So we're a Portland, Oregon-based company. You know, we're about 13 people, most of everybody working at home and exercising virtually. What you'll see over on the right is the RISE demo site. You know, if you want to look at that while we're doing the presentation, you're certainly welcome. All the information is there, and the demo link is shareable with other people. We're going to eventually move to just login so that it is a protected community without the demo access. The demo access will be extremely curtailed relative to what you get as a participating member. So we work on situational awareness, threat monitoring, information sharing with our platform TX360. A couple of examples on the on information sharing will be presented, but the big one that we do is the New York City Metropolitan Resilience Network in conjunction with Intercept and the Metropolitan Resilience Network. We work with Allied Universal, which is a $7.X billion security firm, and we run on the Microsoft Azure cloud technology stack. And we have 2 brands, our enterprise toolkit, which is what RISE is built on, and TX Global, which is an enterprise alerting capability that's very automated, very inexpensive, and very easy to use. So let's dive into the recovery. We're in the pandemic. I'm sure you've been doing all kinds of things like washing your hands till they bleed, wearing masks, doing everything you can do to avoid, catching this virus. And then, but the economy has taken a huge hit. So worldwide, we've seen incredible drops in GDP. We've seen unemployment go through the roof, not just in the U.S., but in many other countries. And essentially, globally, we've stopped all the non-essential activities for several months. And the restart is happening, and it's in the process right now, but it's very jerky and difficult. And you can see even right now, all the different issues that are coming up in the news. And it's going to get worse if we don't figure out how to plan for this recovery and share the burden with everybody else. And that's what this presentation will focus on. That's really what RISE tries to enable, is the working together part of moving the recovery forward. Because there's going to be many overlapping issues, there's going to be a lot of different priorities, and you're going to see a ton of different jurisdictional changes in terms of, do I wear a mask, do I not wear a mask? Do my people have to wear gloves, do they not wear gloves? How close can they sit? What about elevators? All these different issues are going to come together in the recovery process. So just to give you an idea, and also to help my own state of mind, I went through and tried to calculate what a day of delay would cost the world, and I came up with a $75 billion number. I don't know if that's right or not, but I took the world GDP divided by 12, figured out which percentage of the economy has been stopped, and then divided that by 30 and came up with 75 billion a day. So it's probably as close as anybody else's forecast around today. Some of the potential problems that you see on the right, work testing, overlapping jurisdictional regulations, best practices, things are changing all the time. Recurrence of the virus, we think, is going to be a key issue. And then what are the choke points going to be? What happens when everybody gets back on public transit? What happens when you get to your, 76-story high rise and the elevators are such that you can only put 4 people in an elevator if you're going to maintain social distancing, but that now backs up to 250 people standing in the lobby waiting to get on, those very safe elevators. Some of the other issues around the recovery are, what's the shape of the recovery? Is it going to be a W, which means it's going to go up, it's going to go down, it's going to go up, it's going to go down. A V, which is a very sharp recovery, which President Trump and Vice President Pence are predicting, along with a couple of financial firms, just a straight up rocket, no problems, no effort. Or a U-shaped recovery that'll take longer, or an L-shaped recovery, which means it's never coming back. And the L is mostly associated with things like the cruise ship industry. And then we've got to worry about tectonic shifts. What's going to happen to our world? What's a new normal going to look like if certain things take place, right? So what happens if 40% of the employees stay working from home? They don't come back. Does that change the dynamics of commercial real estate? Does it cause people to move out to the country where they can get a much bigger house since they're going to be working at home all the time, and start putting pressure on city real estate and prices start coming down? Does it cause some major shifts in the economy and the world that we know it? And then other implications like unemployment, wars, famine, does food supply get disrupted? All very concerning for everybody involved in the recovery. And at the same time, you've got other things happening at the same time. We've seen some of the first storms from the hurricane season. We've got a couple of very large wildfires going on down in that Arizona area. We've had tornadoes and other major weather events, protests, all those different things that are going on concurrently, along with this idea of public perception, right? So if we open up the NFL stadiums, are people going to go? We're going to put 50,000 people in there, or people going to stay away, right? From a business standpoint, who are going to be the winners and losers? So, and is that going to shift enough of the employees so that if one industry is laying people off, are the people that are expanding going to be able to hire all those people, and will those skill sets merge and match? And then you have to look at your own, organization's variables. So whether you're an urban, suburban, or rural company, single location, multi-location, how many employees, do you have a standalone building, or you're in a building with 15 other companies, right? Big difference in terms of organizing the recovery. Is your customer interface over the phone, or do you typically do meetings, or do you go work on site, right? If you're a plumbing company, you've got no choice but to be up close and personal with all your customers. Right? And similarly, international, USA only, where your geographic locations, what sector you're in, all these different issues that you see in the slide have to do with organizing your recovery capability. And these are some of the recovery mitigation strategies from a high level, of which we're going to focus on information sharing. So there's several good articles about organizing a corporate nerve center, and our RTX 360 product is actually very good at supporting those corporate nerve centers. Situational awareness, staying up to date and understanding what's changing is going to be very important. You don't want to do something on Monday only to find out a week later that it changed on Tuesday and you should have reset right away, and you ended up wasting a lot of time and dollars making that poor decision. We're going to drill down into information sharing, and that is inside your company, across your industries, regionally, with customers, with suppliers. All those different things of sharing are going to make it better. And in that tune, inside your company, keeping watch and having a fast feedback cycle are another element of mitigating some of the issues with the recovery, making it go faster, making it go smoother, keeping everybody on track. So that's the meta view. Let me talk about information sharing, and the information sharing that we're going to talk about today is, everybody in a defined group sharing for mutual benefit, not proprietary information, and it can be, general information sharing inside an industry sector or regionally. If you have a city where you're trying to align everybody with the same information about what's happening inside the city in terms of reopening, that'll all help. You saw some examples come out of 9/11. There was a big connect dots problem because people weren't sharing information, had some huge consequences. And the motto "Dare to Share" that I started my presentation with came out of the intelligence community in terms of trying to get people to share more information. And the key is having a vetted community where you can actually have trust and non-attribution if people desire. And these are a couple of great examples. I mentioned our New York City Metropolitan Resilience Network, but InfraGard is probably the best public-private partnership out there today. 70,000 business people supported by the FBI, highly vetted members, super active in terms of all kinds of different issues. So, one I'd recommend, very highly for joining is the InfraGard. The ISACs are nonprofit based, really focused on a particular industry. They actually stand for industry sharing and access centers. You'll see one for the manufacturing industry, you'll see one for banking. So they're focused on that particular sector. I wanted to touch on saving through sharing. If you look at your organizations today, it's very easy to look at, headcount. It's very easy to look at expenses when you list out, I'm paying this much for this tool, I'm spending this much on internet access, I'm spending this for this. One aspect that gets overlooked a lot of times is wasted time and how much that can cost an organization. So if you look at this for a minute, you'll see that an organization that has 500 employees and they waste an hour a week at a very low overhead rate per hour for the average employee, it adds up very quickly to $1 million a year of wasted time. So being able to reconstitute some of that by sharing information, making sure everybody's getting the right information the first time, as opposed to multiple groups having to find the same information or having to be deconflicted, becomes a very important element, especially as budgets get more constrained as this recession takes hold. So very, very important there. So inside the recovery, the reason information sharing is going to be important is this is going to be complex. No matter if you're a small business, with 5 employees, all the way up to the global multinationals with $100 billion in revenue. It's going to be difficult. Things are going to be changing fast. what worked 2 years ago is going to be different today. What emerges as best practices 6 months from now may be different than both. And one of the key things is better response time, managing your budget, and then driving, best practices. And one thing that's going to emerge is a lot of innovation. So you're going to see things like, new thermometers, new measurement capabilities. I just saw a piece of technology that can actually measure, social distancing, temperature, and one other thing that I can't remember, all at the same time, and feed that back into a situational awareness system like ours. And the other thing you have to be careful of is misinformation. So having a vetted community and having people be able to go, oh, that's actually wrong, and here's why. And focused on vetted information can help a lot in terms of information sharing. So with that, I'm going to dive into Rise. This is what Rise looks like, and I'll actually do a quick demo. The idea here is you have different dashboards about different parts of the recovery, and we'll continue to add dashboards based on feedback from the participants. So, for example, if a group of people from Oregon wanted to create an Oregon-based dashboard because there were 200 of them and they were all dealing with the same, Oregon regulations, that's something we could add, at their behest, or they could turn around and say, we'll sponsor a dashboard and fill in that information so that other people can use that as a means of finding it, so that we'll organize it and do that. People will be able to submit information. They'll be able to submit content, recommended content, and all this will be moderated. They'll be able to submit opinions, similar to a newspaper with their opinion column, all recovery based, and then also, questions and answers. So we'll continue to try to build, feedback from the community and drive that from a consolidated standpoint. Some of the key functions about Rise, as I mentioned, no cost to people that we accept as participants. 2 logins per organization. It's password protected, so that it'll be a vetted community. We'll know who's in there, who's doing what. No bots, no information, no internet trolls, which is a problem that you run into with wide open websites. And all the dashboards will be continually updated. Our underlying technology knows how to go out to the sea of information out there and pull in information on a regularly updated basis and post it to these dashboards around the particular areas. You have mentioned moderated submissions, and we'll also be able to email and text alerts for key topics. If, for example, virus resurgence is something that's very important to the participants, and we're tracking that on a very granular level, that's something we could actually drive email and text alerts for. And we'll have SME-sponsored dashboards and some other capabilities as well. So let me jump in and do a quick Rise demo. So it'll take me 1 second, hopefully. So this should look stunningly similar to what I just showed you. As I mentioned, what you'll see is, FAQs, the ability to submit information, and the ability also to drive feedback of what you like, what you don't like, information about our 2 products, and then key is the information dashboard. So, for example, on the economic recovery, this is a recovery overview that will give you the idea of where case is still happening, being able to pull information from our analysts, the Center for Disease Control, identifying other resources so that, you can come to one place and get pointers to all these other great resources, and we'll work with participants to rank these in terms of what's the best sources you can possibly go to. So, there's probably a lot of debate as to, is Worldometer the best one to track? Quick case count, I happen to use it, but there's also, the CDC Johns Hopkins website, all different ones there that people can look at. So these different dashboards will have different information in terms of, some of them global on a virus recurrence basis. So being able to see, what's happening around the world with virus recurrence. Also in the U.S., seeing what's happening on a much more granular basis. And then things like testing, where it's like, what's happening with testing? Where is that different information coming from? And also contact tracing. So if there is an outbreak, what kind of information is out there about contact tracing, what's gonna happen there. And you can see, again, this is coming from, from news, it's coming from social media, it's bringing in a host of information from everywhere. So, very easy to use, no startup time in terms of being able to look at this information. And again, we give people plenty of ways to submit information to us. So that's the very, very quick demo. As I mentioned, these are some of the key information sources, news, social media, especially trusted Twitter. And trusted Twitter is Twitter put out by people like, the NYPD, the different government agencies, where they're actually issuing from a trusted source, as opposed to raw Twitter, where, you can get pretty much anything you want. Aliens have landed and a number of other things. So it takes a lot of work to confirm the raw Twitter stuff, and Rise really isn't designed to be that kind of intelligence curation platform. We found tremendous value on YouTube, that incredible amounts of content from very smart people being posted. There's just so much of it sometimes that having help sorting through all these different pieces is very, very useful. And then harnessing data, for example, from trade associations, those kinds of things. And as much as we can, we put the data into a geospatial context, so you can take a look at it from from either a country standpoint, from a U.S. map standpoint, and see how it might affect your particular facilities. So that's kind of the overview to Rise. As I mentioned, it's a free information sharing exchange. You don't have to put in proprietary information. You don't have to put in any information at all to participate. There are both strategic, regional, and industry models that apply. These are some of the participants, but we think we'll have a wide range of other ones. And you can email info@swanisland.net if you're interested in accessing Rise after you've looked at the demo one that I put up. So, and then I wanted to spend a moment talking about what Rise is built on. So Rise is built on our TX360 cloud platform that is an all hazards threat monitoring and situational awareness capability, designed for corporations, both in their security operations center or nerve center, or anybody that wants to track a tremendous amount of of information for their particular company. So, in a private version of TX360, all of your facilities would end up on the maps, and you'd be able to track information against those. You'd be able to create the kind of dashboard you saw for your particular facilities capabilities, and meter that information across your own company, partners and customers. So similar capabilities to Rise, but far more detailed from the standpoint of your own organization and the type of news that can be brought in, including, for example, other severe weather and things that don't have anything to do with the recovery, but can still end up hurting your organization. So this kind of gives you a quick view of how that how that works. Your corporate nerve center can actually utilize TX360 to pull that information in, sort it out, and communicate across your organization. And this is how TX360 is actually built. So we have intelligence channels, over 2,000 from around the globe, that can be harnessed and customized. They can be sorted and filtered to be relevant to the particular intelligence mission you're trying to accomplish. And you can add new feeds at will. So information from both inside your organization can be combined with outside information. And that, combined with putting all of your facilities and assets on the map, gives you the ability to do targeted alerts around those facilities. So you actually would get smart alerts on email and text that can be, very rich and contain a map and all kinds of other information, and also be proximity based. So what you're seeing here, for example, is an earthquake that happened 37.2 miles from a particular corporate asset that this customer had, and you have the magnitude. So you've got a rich alert, and you've got the ability to go back to the USGS site that issued the earthquake alert and look at the original article if you so desire. And then I mentioned and showed the dashboards inside of Rise. The ones inside of our TX360 product are more tactically focused, in the sense of being able to show cameras, being able to show real-time breaking alerts across a wide range of topics determined by our customers. And you know, again, we're tracking the Kogan virus for a number of our customers. You can see this being tracked in close to real time. And to wrap it up, I want to just emphasize, you know, take a look at RISE. I think information sharing is going to leverage everybody's knowledge as we try to move to this new normal, and accelerating recovery, as you saw by that number, that cost from a delay standpoint. It's far better to plan and run versus stumble and fall. Really important for every organization. You know, why do it the hard way if you can find a way that's going to be more amenable and more effective for your organization and your team to get up and running. And I'd encourage you to create situational awareness capabilities, not just for the recovery, but for every threat your organization is facing. I think the pandemic was a hard lesson to a lot of companies that they should have been looking forward and planning for some of these disasters that were coming a lot more thoroughly than they may have done prior to the pandemic. So, and you know, tools are important. You know, we have tools. There are plenty of other tools that are not ours out there, but they take your people and they really can help you leverage your people time, which is becoming more and more important, especially if everybody's working from home. And then the last lesson is to remember the lessons, right? Do an after action report, sit down and look at, you know, what did we learn? You know, what do we do right? What do we have to reinvent? Because, you know, when something else happens, and you know, you hope it never does, but we know from a historical standpoint, you know, that there are plenty of other major issues like the pandemic that can hit our, you know, both our, you know, our families, our businesses, our countries, and make a huge impact. So remembering these lessons, all under the heading of resilience, so that we can get up tomorrow and be stronger and better at handling these kind of situations that can impact us, is really, really important. So with that, I think we can go to some questions and answers and get everybody back to work.
Thank you so much, Pete. We do have some questions in here. First off, we have, what are the advantages of a community approach versus an open website for everyone?
So that's a great question. So when you think about a lot of the sites, you know, if you want to go out there to you know, Reddit, or you want to go in and read the comments in the New York Times or in YouTube, when it's open, it is, you know, it's a free for all, and you don't know, you know, if what information is being posted is coming from somebody that's been vetted to get into that community, or if it's even a person at all. It may be a bot. It may be you know, somebody deliberately trying to mislead a set of information or cause problems. So a vetted community gives you at least the ability to go, like, at least go back and make sure everybody in this community is a person, and everything that's done is associated with a person, so that it can all be moderated.
To follow up on that, another question asks, can you share information found in RISE with others that aren't RISE members?
Sure. So a key part of RISE is sharing. And so you can take information from RISE and share it with anybody you want. We're working hard to make sure that the information inside of RISE comes from, you know, vetted sources, you know, comes from people that are participating, and that it is not in any way proprietary, classified, or sensitive, so that it can be reshared freely.
How do you sponsor a dashboard?
So we've set up this concept of sponsoring a dashboard, and if you have interest in sponsoring one for your company, give me a call. The idea is, if your company has a very deep subject matter expertise, so, you know, for example, Swan Island Networks knows very little about contact tracing. You know, we can certainly go through and vet articles about contact tracing, and using some, you know, things we've learned about curating other types of intelligence, make very, very good educated guesses at what good content is. But if somebody wanted to sponsor a dashboard and say, look, I'm one of the country's expert on contact tracing, I understand the privacy issues, I understand the geographic tracking issues, I understand the relationships between the corporations, the state health agencies, and the people that may be tested or may be exposed, all those things, we would happily work with them to have them sponsor a dashboard, so that that expertise is increasing the level of intelligence inside the community.
Another question is, can there be a private labeled version of RISE?
Yes, we've actually had a couple of folks approach us for our product can be branded as somebody else's product. So, you know, for example, I'm trying to think, if you were a large consulting firm and you had 600 customers that you wanted to share information, you could leverage the RISE platform, brand it as your product, and then drive it out to your customers working in conjunction with us.
How about a dashboard around the elections?
That would be a decision that we probably get feedback from people inside of the RISE community. It's very easy for us to add an additional dashboard. I don't know I don't have a real opinion of whether that's tightly tied to the recovery. Certainly the leadership of the country is going to have an impact, but we would certainly, if people felt like it was a very good idea, and we'll probably have a survey capability as well for things like that, we would certainly add it, especially if there were clear issues of economic impact and the recovery impact.
Great. And the last question I see here is, what if my company needs more than 2 logins to RISE?
We will work with companies. We'll probably have some kind of monthly fee, like $25 or $50 a month per additional login if people wanted to have, for example, 15 or 20 recovery people using the system. We've designed it at 2 because we think that gives us the ability to give it out to the widest range of companies. But we'll certainly be flexible to companies that want to approach us and use more than 2 logins.
Great, that's it for the questions.
All right, fantastic. Well, look, Miranda, thanks for organizing the webinar, and I appreciate everybody that came and everybody that might be listening to this as a follow-on YouTube. Our contact information is on the presentation. Feel free to reach out to us if you have interest in RISE or any other issues around the recovery. And I wish everybody well with making this recovery work out.
Thank you so much, Pete, everyone.